There's a kind of pain that doesn't scream. It just settles into your bones and makes a home there. The steady beep of hospital machines was the first sound I heard after the ICU haze lifted. My chest ached, ribs tight from the ventilator. But it wasn't the physical pain that stayed with me. It was the way Aaron smiled when he walked in. "Good to see you awake, Dad," he said, pulling a chair closer to the bed. "Don't worry about the house. I took care of everything." That sentence, it landed like a soft punch. My mind was too fogged to ask what he meant, but I remembered the way he gripped my wrist when I was being wheeled into surgery, the way he whispered, "Just sign this for now," shoving a clipboard under my hand. I should have asked more questions, but grief over Margaret had dulled my instincts, that and the morphine. I was discharged 2 weeks later. I shuffled through my front door, breath caught between gratitude and guilt. The walls were colder. On the kitchen counter, a stack of mail waited. I flipped through it absently, then stopped. The name on every envelope wasn't mine. Aaron Glenn. Property tax statement, mortgage reassignment, utility bills, all addressed to him. I opened one, hands shaking. Inside, confirmation of deed transfer. Effective owner, Aaron Glenn. Former owner, Raymond Glenn. I dropped the paper. "What is this?" I asked aloud to no one. The silence answered. I stormed into the spare room, the one Aaron used as a home office when he stayed over to help. It was empty now, just a few files left in the drawer, one folder marked transfer documents. Inside I found it, the form I'd signed. My signature was there, but everything else looked changed. Printed text misaligned, fields filled in after the fact. My name erased. That night I called Aaron. "Hey, Dad," he said too casually, "feeling better?" "What did you do?" I managed the house like we discussed. When you were in the hospital, things needed attention. Bills, deadlines. You weren't exactly responsive. You forged the details. You signed it. I didn't sign that. He sighed. "Come on, Dad, it's still your house. I'm just holding it, it's safer this way." My throat tightened. "You've stolen from me." "Don't be dramatic." I hung up. My legs nearly gave out beneath me. I sat in Margaret's old armchair, clutching the envelope like it could somehow change itself back. I wish someone had warned me. Not about dying, but about what your own blood can do when they smell opportunity. Later that night, I stared at the deed again, tracing where my name had once lived. That empty space didn't just mark a document. It marked a line I hadn't realized he was willing to cross. I didn't cry, but my hand trembled. Not from age, but from fury. You never expect strangers to know more about your family than you do, until they look you in the eye with pity. The hospital smelled the same, antiseptic, fatting flowers, burnt coffee in the hallway. I was there for a standard follow-up. Just routine, they said. Clara, the night nurse, spotted me before I even made it to the desk. She motioned gently. "Mr. Glenn, can I speak with you privately?" I followed her down a quiet corridor. Her voice was soft but steady. "I was your night nurse when you were under sedation," she said. "Your son, he came in almost every evening." I waited. He didn't ask about your condition. Not once. He kept talking about timing things right, about listing your house before the market shifted. I stared at her. "Are you sure?" She nodded slowly. "He asked about your mental state, wanted proof you were slipping, said it would speed things up legally." His words. My hands curled into fists before I could stop them. Clara hesitated, then reached into her scrubs. She handed me a flash drive, small, silver, scratched. "I shouldn't have," she said, "but I recorded one of his calls. It felt wrong. He used your name like it was a step stool." I took the drive. It weighed less than a coin but sank into my pocket like an anchor. "I thought you should know," she added. "I don't know how to thank you," I whispered. Just don't let him get away with it. I drove home with the windows down, air stinging my eyes. Or maybe that wasn't the wind. When I pulled into the driveway, I didn't get out right away. I sat there with the flash drive in my palm, thumb tracing its edge. I had always made excuses for Aaron, called it stress, blamed it on his mother's death, told myself he was just processing things differently. But this was different. This was cold, calculated. Inside the house, I closed every curtain before I turned on the laptop. The screen glowed in the dark room. I plugged in the drive, opened the single audio file. Static, then his voice. Yeah, it's done. He signed the form, barely conscious. Didn't ask a thing. Once the paperwork clears, he'll have nowhere to go. House flips easy. It's a gold mine. Silence. Then laughter, his. I sat back, heart pounding, ears ringing. It wasn't just betrayal. It was premeditated erasure. I stared at the laptop until the screen dimmed. Then I stood, crossed the room, opened the hall closet. Inside, a locked wooden box Margaret and I had used for war medals and marriage papers. I opened it, took out the old medals, folded them gently, and placed the flash drive inside. I labeled the box with a thick black marker. Evidence. Then I closed the lid and turned off the light. Some calls feel heavier than death, especially when they come too late. Helen hadn't heard from me since Margaret's funeral. We'd hugged stiffly by the chapel doors, both too tired to talk. She was Margaret's oldest friend, sharp as a blade in court and twice as unforgiving. When I finally called her, I didn't know what to say. It's about Aaron, I began. She didn't ask why, she just said, come over. Her condo still smelled like rosemary and old paper. Law books lined the shelves like soldiers. She poured tea without asking. I told her everything, the hospital, the flash drive, the forged deed. She didn't interrupt once. When I finished, she leaned back, her fingers steepled beneath her chin. Do you still have the original trust? I nodded. Filed it years ago. Margaret made me promise. Go get it. Back home, I dug through the filing cabinet in the basement. Dust clung to everything, old tax returns, Margaret's school certificates, my war medals. Behind them all, a manila folder labeled GLENN Family Trust. I brought it to her that night. She laid the pages out across her dining table beneath a small desk lamp, eyes darting over every line. Her glasses slid down her nose. She didn't bother pushing them up. This isn't just sloppy, she muttered. It's criminal. He lifted your signature, pasted it over a blank transfer form, and filed it electronically. He left the notary section blank. I sat across from her, numb. He thought no one would check, she added. Most people don't. I ran a hand over my face. What do I do? She looked up, and for the first time in days, I saw certainty. We make it right, she said, but we do it quietly. I stared at the trust. I don't want a war, I just want my house back. Helen smirked. This isn't war, it's strategy. She walked into the next room and returned with a small black device, a digital recorder. She placed it on the table between us like a loaded pistol. Start documenting everything. Conversations, threats, manipulations, even the silence. I nodded slowly, and then, when the time's right, she said, we'll gut this whole scam from the inside. She poured more tea. Her hands didn't shake. I stared at the recorder for a long time after she left. It was the size of a thumb, with a single red button. I pressed it once. The red light blinked to life. And in the quiet of that room I whispered, Aaron Glenn, my son, my mistake, my evidence. The light blinked again. And stayed on. They say madness creeps in quietly, but in my house it came dressed as concern. Dad, you left the oven on again, Aaron said, holding up a tray of cold, untouched chicken. You could have burned the place down. I didn't use the oven, I said. My voice was calm, almost bored. Kara stepped in, shaking her head. "You really don't remember." Her tone carried pity sharp enough to cut. "He's been forgetting things more often, Aaron. I'm worried." Her words weren't for me. They were for the invisible witnesses they were pretending to perform for: neighbors, social workers, whoever they thought might be listening. I smiled. "Maybe you're right. Maybe I'm just getting old." Aaron sighed dramatically. "We're only trying to help you, Dad. Maybe a professional should check in sometimes, make sure you're still okay to handle finances." Finances. There it was again. Every conversation circled back to that word like a vulture tracing the same sky. Helen had warned me. "They'll poke holes in your sanity until you start believing them. Stay calm, record everything." So I did. Each night after they went upstairs, I'd pull out my small recorder and whisper into it. "Monday. He told me I forgot to pay the gas bill, but I paid it online last week. Tuesday. She said I called her by Margaret's name. I didn't speak to her all day." I kept a journal too, every insult, every small cruelty. Once I found Kara whispering on the phone in the living room. "He leaves the stove on, gets confused with mail. I think we need a report, something official." Her voice dropped lower. "Yes, we'll provide documentation." The next day, I caught Aaron, accidentally, leaving his phone recording on the table while I made tea. I gave him a show. "Did I tell you what day it is?" I asked him in a shaky tone. "No, oh dear, I think I forgot." He smiled like a snake sensing warmth. "See, that's what I mean. You're just tired, Dad." Later, when he went upstairs, I checked his phone. It was still recording. I smiled into the mic and whispered, "Don't forget to delete this one, son. It doesn't sound convincing." That night, I placed my own recorder under the couch. Two can play this game. Days turned to weeks. Each morning, I'd find another small reminder of their quiet sabotage: misplaced keys, unplugged electronics, mail rearranged. Each cut small enough to ignore, but together, they bled my patience dry. Still, I said nothing. I smiled, I nodded, I thanked them for helping. Inside, I sharpened. Then the letter arrived, a plain white envelope, no return address, just my name. I opened it at the kitchen table, the one Margaret and I bought the year Aaron started college. It was from the bank. Notification of account ownership update. Primary account holder, Aaron Glenn. My name wasn't listed anywhere, not even as secondary. A tremor moved through my hands, but not from fear. I folded the paper neatly, slid it into my journal, and wrote beneath it. "They want to erase me, but I'm writing myself back in." Sometimes the only way to remember who you are is to drive far enough away from who they've tried to make you. I didn't tell anyone I was leaving that morning. I just took the truck, a thermos of coffee, and the key I hadn't touched in years, the one with the fatting blue tag that read cabin. 3 hours north, through roads that curved like memory, the world got quieter, trees thicker, cell service gone, no buzz, no tracking apps, no Aaron. The cabin sat just where we left it, hunched between pines, the paint chipped, the wood gray from time. Margaret used to say it looked like it had secrets. I unlocked the door. The air inside was stale, dry, untouched. Dust coated everything. Still, nothing felt broken. I ran my hand along the windowsill, felt the grooves we'd carved there one summer. M+R, 1982. It was still mine. Outside, the mailbox creaked when I opened it. Dozens of envelopes spilled out: junk, tax notices, one yellowed postcard from a realtor. And then I saw it. Heavy envelope, cream paper, gold foil logo, Whitaker Land and Development. Inside, a formal letter folded in thirds. "Dear Mr. Glenn, we are reaching out with interest regarding your property near Silver Pine Lake. Our recent evaluations suggest your parcel has significant potential. We are prepared to offer $6,800,000 for acquisition. Please contact us at your earliest convenience. I sat on the porch swing, paper in my lap, heart thudding in my ears. 6.8 million. Margaret and I bought this land for peace, not profit. Aaron never cared for it, said it was boring. Nothing but trees and dead signal. He never once asked about it in all the years since Margaret passed. He had no idea it even existed. For the first time in months, I felt a flicker of control. Real solid ground beneath me. I could hear Helen's voice in my head, keep your cards close. So I didn't call her, not yet. I needed this to be mine, just for a moment. I cleaned out the fireplace with trembling hands, stacked the old logs, lit a match. The flame caught fast, rising against soot-black brick. I poured the last of my coffee into a mug, sat in Margaret's old rocking chair by the window, watched the lake blink through the trees like an old friend. The offer sat on my lap, warm from the firelight. I stared at the numbers again, not with greed, but with something closer to redemption. He took my house, my name, my dignity. But this land, this memory, he could never touch it. Not now. Not ever. I leaned back, closed my eyes, and whispered to the empty room. He took my house, but he'll never take my peace. Sometimes it's not the knife in your back that hurts, it's the applause around it. When I walked through the front door, Aaron looked up from the couch, feigning concern like a man rehearsing lines he barely cared to remember. "Where were you, Dad? We thought you wandered off again." I didn't blink. "Just a walk," I said. He exchanged a glance with Kara. Something between mockery and worry, the kind that only plays well in front of witnesses. Except today, there were none, just their rehearsed pity and my silence. I went to the kitchen, poured myself a cup of tea, and waited. By sundown, the house was full. Friends, coworkers, realtors, the usual crew. Loud voices, louder opinions. Bottles popped open like secrets, laughter bleeding into the hallways. I sat at the edge of the room near the bookshelf, a shadow in my own home. No one noticed. And that was the plan. I slipped the recorder from my pocket, thumbed it on, and let it rest inside my tea tin beside me. Helen's voice echoed in my memory. "They won't be careful when they feel safe. That's when they'll tell the truth." They did. A man in a red blazer leaned back in the recliner, swirling his drink. "I flipped a cabin upstate last year. Old veteran owned it. Didn't even know the land was worth anything. Got it for pennies." Kara laughed first. Then Aaron chimed in, voice raised above the music, drunk on pride. "Sounds like my dad," he said. "He's got this dusty old place near a lake, doesn't even remember buying it, can't wait to cash that out." The room erupted. I didn't. I just sat there, staring at the tea swirling in my cup, steam rising like smoke from a fire long buried. I pressed stop. 10 seconds of cruelty, recorded, preserved, undeniable. Later that night, when the house finally emptied and their laughter had faded into drunken snores, I went upstairs, shut my door, and sent the audio file to Helen. She called back 5 minutes later. "That's enough proof," she said, voice sharp. "We move now." I didn't say a word. I opened my laptop, pulled out the developer's letter from my drawer, and typed slowly, deliberately. Subject: cabin sale, private appointment request. "Dear Mr. Whitaker, I am available to meet regarding the Silver Pine Lake property. Please note, all discussions will remain private. I am prepared to proceed on my terms." I clicked send. Then I closed the laptop, leaned back in my chair, and let the silence finally mean something. The kind of silence that comes just before a storm breaks. Sometimes revenge doesn't need fire, just a plate, a chair, and the smell of something they never expected you to remember. I cooked slow. Roasted chicken, seasoned the way Margaret used to, rosemary, lemon, a touch of garlic. mashed potatoes with too much butter, the table set with her best china. I even folded the napkins like she did for birthdays before everything soured. Aaron and Kara arrived late, dressed like they'd come from a meeting. Their eyes scanned the table, then me, suspicion behind their smiles. "This looks nice," Kara said, sitting down without removing her coat. "Why the sudden dinner?" Aaron asked, already reaching for a roll. "Thought we could eat together," I said, placing the last dish on the table. "Feels like we haven't in a long time." Aaron laughed. "Yeah, well, you've been pretty distant lately." I poured tea. "Guess I've had a lot on my plate." They didn't trust it. I could see it in their glances. But greed makes people clumsy. The scent of inheritance had always dulled Aaron's instincts. We ate in silence for a while, just the clink of forks and the murmur of forced pleasantries. Halfway through the meal, I stood up and walked to the drawer by the cabinet. "I have something for you both," I said, returning with 2 white envelopes. "Just something small to remember me by." Aaron's smirk twisted. "Is this what I think it is?" He opened his first. His fork slipped from his fingers, hitting the plate with a sharp clang. "What the hell is this?" Kara was already tearing hers open, eyes scanning fast. "Finalized property transfer," Aaron read aloud. "Silver Pine Lake, payment confirmed, 6.8 million transferred to." He stopped, looked up at me. "To you." I nodded once, "All in my name, clean, legal." "You sold it," he barked. "It was never yours to sell," I said softly. "You said it was just some old shack. You didn't even remember owning it." "That's what you assumed," I replied, sipping my tea. "I let you." Kara hissed, "You can't do this." "I already did." Aaron stood up, face flushed. "You think this changes anything?" "No," I said, "but it ends something." He laughed, short, dry, desperate. "So this is your little revenge?" "This is my restoration." His hands trembled around the paper. "We had plans. That land was going to make you rich," I finished for him. He didn't respond. I picked up my plate, walked it to the sink, and began rinsing. Behind me, their voices dropped to static, useless noise. I dried my hands on Margaret's old dish towel, the one with the faded sunflowers. And as I walked past Aaron, I saw the moment hit him, that everything he'd gambled on had already slipped through his fingers. His laugh turned hollow. The paper trembled in his hands. And I walked away, steady and silent. Peace doesn't always come after battle. Sometimes it arrives while you're still sharpening the blade. My new apartment was small, quiet, and clean. No voices behind doors. No footsteps I didn't trust. Just the lake, the trees, and the wind moving through the pines like Margaret's fingers brushing my shoulder. Helen sat across from me at the kitchen table, papers spread between us. Her reading glasses fogged slightly from the steam rising off her tea. Mine had gone cold. "All set," she said, tapping the last page of the new trust. "Every cent from the sale is now protected. Not even a shadow of Aaron can reach it." "And the exclusions?" I asked. "Written in blood," she said, figuratively. I chuckled. We'd been meeting twice a week, mapping out the legal threads, the protections, the new legacy. I added 2 full scholarships in Margaret's name, one for nursing students and one for single mothers going back to school. She would have wanted that. I also funded a veterans' housing initiative, something real, something that outlived headlines and handshakes. Helen slid over a thick envelope. "Cease and desist notice. Sent it to Aaron yesterday." "Details?" I asked, though I already knew. "It outlines the forgery, the abuse of power, the property manipulation. No more gray area. One wrong move and we go public with the recordings." I nodded. The calls started an hour later. Aaron first, 17 missed calls in one afternoon. Then Kara, 5 voicemails, all syrup and panic. "Your son is hurting, Raymond. He made a mistake. We didn't understand the process. We were just trying to help. Can't we talk? This doesn't have to be a war. But it already had been. A quiet war. A war of silences and documents and bruised dignity. And I had already won. I didn't return the calls, I just saved them. Archived, tagged, labeled. On the porch, I sat with my journal and a pen that didn't shake. The lake shimmered beneath a sky that had forgotten how to storm. The wind moved gently through the pines. And in it I heard Margaret's voice. Not imagined, not ghostly, just remembered. Legacy isn't money, she used to say, it's mercy. I looked down at the final page of the new trust. One signature left. I stared at the line, then at the name printed beneath it, Raymond Glenn, trustee. No hesitation. No second thoughts. I pressed the pen to the paper and signed. Slow, clear, steady. A signature sealing both revenge and peace. Some people think betrayal is private, but when you bury a man alive, don't be surprised when he digs up the truth in front of a crowd. Helen filed the case on a Thursday. By Friday morning, the story was on the front page of the local paper. Elderly veteran outsmarts family in $7 M-Trust scam. I didn't ask for the headline, I didn't need it. But I won't pretend it didn't feel like air after a long time underwater. By Monday, Aaron was out of a job. Ethical misrepresentation was the official reason. His brokerage firm issued a statement. So did the community board he used to sit on. His friends, the ones who toasted him around my dinner table, turned cold. Kara tried to defend him online. She posted a long message about misunderstandings and private family matters. But the internet doesn't forget. Screenshots of the court filing spread like wildfire. One post had 1,000 comments in an hour. You tried to steal your father's house. This man built a life, and you cashed it in. I didn't comment, I didn't need to. The courtroom was smaller than I imagined. Beige walls, buzzing lights. Helen sat beside me in her navy suit, calm as ever. Aaron sat 2 rows ahead, shoulders hunched. Kara beside him, face pale, they didn't look at me. Helen stood first, her voice cut clean through the silence. She presented the flash drive, played the recordings, one by one. Aaron's laughter, Kara's whispers, their voices plotting in my kitchen like vultures circling a man they thought was already dead. Then came my journal, every entry, every insult, every moment of silence I'd swallowed so I could feed it back to them now louder. She laid out the forged deed, side by side with the original trust. By the time she finished, even the courtroom clerk wouldn't meet Aaron's eyes. The judge, a man in his 60s with a face carved by decades of lies, looked over his glasses. You didn't just betray a father, he said. You betrayed trust itself. Aaron stood, hands shaking. I was trying to protect the assets, I thought. No, the judge said. You thought no one would fight back. He read the verdict slowly. Restitution, denied. Restraining order, granted. Power of attorney, revoked. Trust and estate, sealed and reassigned. Kara grabbed Aaron's hand. He didn't grab hers back. Outside, the courthouse steps were lined with strangers. People with stories like mine. People with scars they never thought would be seen. A woman in her 50s reached for my hand. You gave us hope, she whispered. You made it count. I didn't know what to say. So I nodded. And as the cameras flashed and the press shouted my name, I walked down the steps with my back straight and my pockets empty. But for the first time in years, I was free. Peace doesn't arrive with noise. It settles in, like ash in the corners of a house that finally remembers how to be quiet. The cabin was mine again, fully restored, but still worn in the right places. The floor creaked the same way it always had. The lake still caught fire at sunset, and for the first time in a long while, nothing felt borrowed. I lit the fireplace before sunset, The wood cracked, popped, then gave in. Warmth returned to the stone walls like a memory knocking at the door. Margaret's photo sat in my lap, black and white, taken on the porch during our first summer here. She was barefoot, smiling. I placed her gently on the mantel. "Welcome home," I whispered. I brewed tea in the old kettle. No machines, no distractions, just water, leaves, and time. The air smelled like pine and citrus peel, like her hands after gardening. Then I opened the journal. Every lie they told, every moment I documented, the whispers, the gaslighting, the laughter behind my back followed by the flash drives, the dinner, the courthouse, the freedom. Page after page. I had filled it not for myself, but for someone else, for the ones who would come after me, the ones who would be told to trust their children, even when those children stopped seeing them as people. I penned a short letter and tucked it between the pages. If you're reading this, it means you still believe your voice matters. You're right. Let this story remind you that survival is not weakness, and silence is not surrender. I placed the journal in a sealed folder labeled for the scholarship committee. They asked for a statement of values to accompany the donation. This was mine. Aaron hadn't called, not in weeks. And I didn't expect he ever would. That too was peace. I carried my tea to the front porch. The sun was slipping behind the trees, painting the lake in amber and silver. I sat in her chair, the one with the worn cushion and the missing spindle she refused to fix because flaws make it ours. The wind pushed through the pines gently, carrying a stillness that felt earned. I closed my eyes and let the silence stretch. This hadn't been about revenge. Not really. It had been about remembering who I was beneath the noise, beneath their lies, beneath the erasure. I had been a husband, a father, a soldier, a builder. And now, finally, a man at peace. The fire crackled softly inside, warming the room behind me. I stood once more, placed my hand on the mantel, and looked at her smiling face. "We kept our promise," I said. And the flames answered for us, glowing quietly into the night.